Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, depending on where and when in the world you're watching this. My name is Freddie Kelly. I'm a product marketing specialist here at Wasabi, and I'm excited to bring together a small panel today to discuss converting carbon emissions to offset goals, a path toward greener IT with Wasabi Impact Circle. And I'm joined today by a few distinguished experts in the space. Hemant Sethi, David Boland, thanks for coming. If you
Thank
want
you,
to give a
Freddie.
quick overview of yourselves, please go ahead.
I'll jump in first, Hemant. You're the one
Yeah,
with
go
the
ahead.
credentials, I'll be quick. My name is David Boland. As Freddie said, I'm the Vice President of Cloud Strategy. I look at special initiatives that Wasabi Technologies should take on, whether they are adjacent products or services, or important functionality like environmental sustainability. So I've been working with Hamath here for the past few years. We've been partners for a while, and we're excited to talk to you about some new things that we've been working on. Hamath, over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, David. Pleasure to meet you all. My name is Hemant Sethi. I'm the founder of Zero Circle. We are a climate finance and fintech platform. We work in a number of different areas focused on financial solutions and sustainability integration into existing ecosystems. And part of what we're going to be discussing today is about how some of our carbon credit solutions are working closely with the Wasabi platforms and how it's integrated into your data storage and data solutions that you currently use on Wasabi.
Fantastic. So today we're going to get into the nitty gritty of carbon market fundamentals, understanding the difference between reduction and removal and the impacts it has on pricing dynamics. We'll also go into the quality credit supply challenges and why diversified portfolios are critical for meeting sustainability goals across your organization. We'll then talk about taking action with Wasabi Impact Circle and how you can move beyond estimation to measurable carbon abatement across your storage environment. Now, Hemant, if you want to dive into a little bit about the market and how it's evolved over time, I think everyone would love to get your perspective.
Yeah, no, thank you, Freddie. So the market is kind of interesting right now around sustainability and carbon credits. Part of what is going on is an overall broader landscape around how people are now evaluating sustainability initiatives for their various programs. There's a big push for data centers, data storage solutions across the world with the advent of AI and some of the technology changes that are going on. And sustainability is a big part of many of these initiatives. If you're, reading the news nowadays, you're probably seeing some of the changes that's happening in our landscape and the drain and pressure on natural resources that are being extracted when you're building some of these new data centers and new technology, right? So that leads to, where is the resources going to come from? Water, land, energy, et cetera, et cetera. And all of that leads back into operation, running the operations of these data centers. So part of the challenge is how can you now make these data centers more sustainable? And, over the next few years, data centers are going to be a big part of where sustainability and energy consumption is going to be utilized. So what we've tried to do here is essentially build an ecosystem of how you can integrate sustainability into your existing data center operations and storage operations. Part of the challenge is the complexity of calculating the footprint, complexity of figuring out what type of initiatives you can run with, and then also making an impact using existing financial instruments or existing sustainable measurement programs that you can incorporate into your data centers. So that's kind of what we've done. And using some of the market drivers, both on the compliance side as well as on the voluntary carbon market side, what we've been able to do is try to connect your operations in the data storage with Wasabi to tie it back into carbon credits and drive meaningful impact. And I know that's been a big part of what some of the customers in Wasabi are also looking at as part of their priorities. And I know, David, you had some survey that you had done a year ago that kind of talks about some of the interest from the customers as well.
That's exactly right. For the past few years now, Wasabi has produced a report called the Cloud Storage Index. And the Cloud Storage Index is a report based on interviews with 1,000 plus customers, not Wasabi customers mostly, but a bit broad mix of cloud customers. And they could be using AWS, Azure, Google, Wasabi, Oracle, IBM. It doesn't really matter. The important part is we have around 1,700 respondents, and we ask them a series of questions. One of the things that stuck out for me this year, of course, was the importance. Again, this is not the first year we've seen it, but again, but it's consistent. The importance of sustainability in terms of infrastructure, architecture, service provider initiatives, commitments, and the built-in tools such as a carbon calculator. And you can see on this chart here, it's the number four and not very far behind one, two, and three, fourth most important solution for customers when they're considering who they're going to partner with in cloud services. The first one, of course, is adjacent cloud services, whether or not there's compute, networking, software as a service, or platform as a service. The second, integration with third-party apps. If you into backup and archive, it may be Veeam, Rubrik, Commvault integration. And then number three is protection of the data, security, compliance, immutability, backup, disaster recovery, that type of protection. But four, again, this year for the fourth year in a row is sustainability. And Hemant, as you mentioned earlier, people are concerned. They're often concerned about their own I would say their own scope 3 emissions for folks who may not be aware of the different types of carbon footprint emissions there are calculated. We're talking about scope 3 emissions for our customers, and that's the indirect emissions, either through business travel or employee commuting, or in this case, the purchase of cloud storage services and the carbon footprint that those cloud storage services emit on behalf of the person who's doing the purchasing. That's typically the most difficult piece to calculate, and that's what Heyman's going to show us later in the demonstration of how you can calculate and figure out what your scope 3 emissions are when you use a cloud storage service like Wasabi, and help you better understand your footprint. Great. This is just a couple examples of quotes. As I mentioned at the Cloud Storage Index, we did in-depth interviews, IDIs with all kinds of different people. And if you take a look at some of the quotes, they say related to sustainability. The first one, we prioritize sustainability since it's consistent with our corporate ESG initiatives or objectives, and make sure that our cloud storage decisions promote ethical technology adoption and long-term ecological responsibility. That's the typical type of answer that we hear from customers when they're just making a decision on who they want to partner with for the long run. They want to make sure that we, like them, have the environment in mind, and we do everything in our power to reduce, our impact on water, land, and energy. And so when people are considering environmental impact of the services that they consume, we want to be able to provide them with answers on just how much of an impact Wasabi has and how much of an impact their usage of Wasabi storage has, and allow them to make decisions on where to place that service, or give them opportunities to purchase offsets for those services that they do use if they have corporate initiatives that they have to abide by with regards to offsets. Freddie, Hamath, back to you.
Great, thanks, David. So, Hemant, I know we've talked about the types of credits in the past in our recent discussions, and there's a gap between what each of these means and how much they cost for a customer to really acquire. And there's a key difference between reduction and removal of carbon from the atmosphere. So,
Yeah.
For a customer part of Wasabi who's looking to do this for the first time, what are some of these things they should be looking at that really distinguish between a higher quality or a higher impact credit and one that's just going to meet their current goals?
Yeah. No, awesome. So there's a couple of things going on in the carbon credit space, right? Part of what is the challenge is the complexity of the types of credits. the various regulatory drivers and pressures from different parts of the world, and it's not uniform and even across the world. And also your own corporate objectives and mandates as a business in terms of what you're interested to do, right? So part of the challenge is navigating, the external landscape and also understanding what kind of carbon credits make sense for your business operations and where your mandate stands for. And all of that comes at a, learning issue where, you're just trying to understand and digest all this information. And then secondarily, identifying the right type of instrument, the carbon credit you want to use to be able to meaningfully offset that emissions within your operation. So at a high level, as Freddie, you mentioned, the reduction removal is a very high level broad category. Just to put some example to it, reduction is when you are, as a business, you're taking meaningful action to reduce your carbon footprint. And a simple example could be, converting your ICE vehicles to EV vehicles, right? That's a very simple example of reducing your own carbon emissions. And removal is where you are basically, using certain types of instruments to completely remove it from the atmosphere. Where, now instead of using a coal plant, for example, now we are using an electric facility to drive a particular operational facility that you might have, right? And that's when you're going to essentially take it out from the atmosphere and, convert it into something that's different process to do that. Removals are much more expensive in today's world because the technology is still very nascent, and there's some cutting edge technology that's been developed to do some of these removal type programs. But it's going to take time to develop over time. And today's removal carbon credits are fairly expensive in its current price. On the reduction side, there's a number of different options to do reduction, and they span from forestry, like afforestation, deforestation type activities. They span from regenerative agriculture and land use, and there's a few other types of credits. And then I can kind of share more about the different types of credit structures and different types of programs, but they all come at varying cost levels, right? In addition to that, you also have to think about the quality of these types of credits, right? Because just because you can qualify for a type of credit doesn't mean you can materially drive meaningful reduction or removal type initiatives. And there are third-party agencies that would verify these credits, and third-party ratings agencies and certifiers that essentially put ratings and grading scales for various types of credits. And as you can imagine, like any rating scales, the lower the rating, the lower the cost, higher the rating, the higher the cost, right? It's fairly straightforward in that standpoint, but it gives the customers purchasing these credits a level of satisfaction and a level of confidence in purchasing these credits, knowing that there's been audited and there's been third-party verifiers that have gone through the very specific credits to be able to verify the quality. And what we are trying to do here is simplify this process for the customers to take action, right? We will essentially bring a curated set of high quality carbon credits to Wasabi customers. And Wasabi customers essentially will have essentially almost like a one-click access to be able to purchase these credits with their existing emissions profile on the Wasabi platform. So this essentially reduces the burden for customers to decide what they need to do, understand which credit options they want to purchase, and now focus on how they can drive impact within their operations without understanding all the complexity behind the carbon credit landscape that currently exists.
Right. Awesome. Okay. That's a great overview. And I think you touched on a few things here. The regulatory landscape just seems to be growing and growing. And as you said, that's something of great importance for people to consider. So for those in whether in the US or EU, there's a few different corporate entities that are driving this regulatory landscape. I know one of them we talked about at length was the SEC climate disclosure rule, which mandates specific climate risk reporting for public companies. And then in the EU, the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive mandates over 50,000 companies reporting on their climate impact, ensuring they're driving, credible, high quality offsets. So talk a little bit about that and how it differs between which market you're in, and what are some key questions they should be considering if they're going with a new provider or not even considering this as part of their strategy at all at this point.
Got it. So there's like a few things going on here, and again, there's part of the challenge is simplifying the complexity, right?
Mhm.
We are working in a global landscape. Wasabi operates globally in all their data centers, and different regulations are impacting different parts of the world very, very differently. As you can imagine, EU is taking the lead on some of these regulatory guidelines around setting up what standards they need to follow to operate within European Union, and also what kind of imports you can do into Europe, both from an energy, sustainability, and even production, like materials production and things like that, right? So the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, CSRD, is one of the big directives within EU that have set broad sustainability guidelines for companies in the European Union. Part of the guidelines involves a reduction around footprint using carbon credits. And this is evolving over the next few years. And what they're asking customers to do is, also asking businesses to do, is have some of their very difficult to reduce emissions offset by using carbon credits, right? And that's a big structure of how EU is looking at it. The same structure is happening around other parts of the world as well. I know Asia is taking a big stand on some of these kinds of initiatives, although the regulatory pressures are still a year or two, a couple of years away, because they're still evolving those regulatory guidelines as well. And in the US, we've gotten in a unique situation right now where there's a big push for energy consumption, energy production. Right now, the SEC mandates are still kind of being flushed out at the federal level, but there are some localized activities happening at the state level. New York and California are kind of leading the charge right now for some of these mandates. And businesses operating at the state level are going to be asked to, do certain sustainability guidelines to operate in the state going forward. All of these is happening over the next few years, right? So, as a business, where do you start, right? So, I think part of the challenge is navigating this complexity within your business itself, but more importantly, starting to set it as part of your internal corporate sustainability initiatives and program that you want to kind of drive. As you know, what we are trying to do here is simplify this process for you, but based on your existing sustainability guidelines, whether it's regulatory driven based on which part of the world you operate, or whether it's part of your corporate mandate and corporate objective, there's various initiatives you can drive to kind of meet your sustainability objectives. And carbon credits and what we're doing with data centers and data storage emissions is one element of your broader sustainability program that we are trying to simplify here. And where we play a role is we would essentially simplify some of the scope three engagement, both on the reporting and the data that you require for Wasabi's emissions, as well as offsetting Wasabi's emissions as part of your broader scope three requirements that you want to kind of meet within your objectives. And again, because the rules are very different across the world, you'll have to look at your corporate objectives in terms of which part of the world you operate in, and identify what type of regulatory requirements and either voluntary or regulatory requirements you can kind of meet within your corporation, and then we can kind of help along the way as well.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, that seems like a great opportunity to have. And I think one of the things you called out there is that if people are, deciding, okay, this is for me, this is part of my my corporate sustainability initiative, but I don't know where to start, or I know that I have a need for this, but going into the first draw for credits is difficult for someone to begin with, and the supply seems like it's very constricted in certain areas. And depending on what you're looking to do, what your goals are, that can be a big sticking point. So as quality continues to be a pressing matter, and as there is increased corporate demand to have long-term offtake agreements, we're seeing this supply and demand mismatch. So should companies continue to wait for more supply if they're looking for a certain project in a certain area of the world? Do they need to tie down certain credits now just so they have them built into their long-term strategy? What would you recommend for someone who's looking to secure credits?
Yeah, no, that's a good point, and it's interesting. I was actually in a webinar recently around the overall market landscape for carbon credits, and basically the gist of what they were talking about at a global scale is the demand is increasing, but the supply is actually shrinking. And part of the reason for the supply shrinking is there's rising quality standards that are being mandated on many of these suppliers of carbon credits right now. And many of them are not meeting those quality standards for the demand to be met. So what that means is it's actually going to drive prices up. And that's been the trend over the last few years in terms of how the prices are moving. So part of the challenge is to know when it makes sense for your organization to jump into the fold right now, so that way you can meet your corporate objectives. And also not wait too long for the prices to jump. I think the prices trend is going higher, and with some of the regulatory guidelines coming up over the next few years, especially as we touch into like 2030 milestones, that many of the regulatory deadlines are set to kick in, the prices are actually going to increase like 2-3x. So we got to have to kind of start start getting into the fold right now, so you can actually start locking in the current prices and also offsetting some of your current emissions within that structure today. Again, kind of going back to where the supply is right now. Part of the challenge, as I mentioned, was the quality is being, there's a lot of quality requirements right now where they're starting to demand higher quality of these credits. And because of that, that requires a lot more time for these credits to develop and to qualify for those credits, right? For these suppliers to qualify for these high quality standards. And if you kind of come in today, you can kind of lock in today, and that way, whatever the supply exists today, you basically get first dibs on that. In addition to that, there's the concept of the spot market and of forward market. The spot market right now is where these are existing credits that exist that you can is ready to buy. And then there's a lot of forward markets where in the future companies are actually locking in future credits so they can get it at current prices. So there's a play for that. And some of the big players like Microsoft and Google are actually playing a lot in that forward market so they can lock in the next 10 years of credits at current prices. They're doing that today. So, these are the kinds of things that companies will have to start thinking about, both to meet regulatory guidelines and requirements, their internal corporate objectives, and also the changes in prices that's going to happen over the next few years.
Right, right. And I know we had talked about the recent retirement of updated vintages, which is the newer quality, the newer updated
Yeah.
options. So having, such focus on the new and even the future focused credits, as you said, that are not even out yet, that's really a driving factor for people to consider this as something that needs to be done yesterday, not, something they can consider next quarter or next year. And I think that's why we've collectively come to provide a solution for our partners and our customers, which I think is going to be really transformative for their own use cases, which is this Wasabi Impact Circle, which we're happy to introduce today. And this is a unique program offered exclusively to partners of Wasabi, which allows for the lowering of your total cloud storage emissions with verifiable high integrity carbon credit projects brought to you by Zero Circle. And I think this is transformative for a couple of reasons, but least of which is that now customers don't have to rely on averages or rough estimates. They can take their measurable storage emissions that we've tracked through Wasabi and verify those with the rigorous standards set out by these regulatory bodies and by the reporting brought to you by Zero Circle again, and then take action on buying up carefully vetted carbon offset projects, which can create real long-term impact, not only for your organization, but for the long-term outlook of your organization. And that's just a full offering of the value chain, which I think hasn't really been done before, which is really incredible. So I want to get your thoughts on that. And, David, from your perspective too, from a strategy point of view, from where we started as building out the invoice calculator to now having this end-to-end solution, what would you say to a partner who wants to dip their toe in the water, wants to get involved, but not really sure how to take that first step?
Great question, Freddie. And so we've been working with the Zero Circle for a few years now, and they helped us build a carbon footprint calculator that our customers have been using for quite a while to help them understand what their carbon footprint is when they use the services that Wasabi delivers. Like Hemant mentioned and I mentioned earlier, Scope 3 emissions. It's the most difficult to calculate. And the reason why Wasabi can do it is because we put in the time ahead of deploying the architecture to figure out exactly how we calculate for the power consumption of our servers, the drives, the switches, the routers, the network equipment. So we know exactly what the power usage is for a specific region for the amount of terabytes of storage that's in that region. And then we also, spend a lot of time calculating, with our data center partners, the power usage efficiency and the carbon intensity of the power that is delivered to that data center. So we have an accurate representation of the amount of power and carbon that's needed to drive a storage region for Wasabi. And then we can there then help our end users calculate what their consumption would be in terms of carbon and power for the storage that they use for any given period of time. And Zero Circle's calculator that we use and share with our customers help people by allowing them to put in the amount of storage they use, the region in which they use it, and the amount of time in which they could use that storage capacity, and then get an accurate reflection of what their contribution to the CO2 footprint would be. And what happens is we get a lot of questions from our partners, our channel partners who resell Wasabi, and our managed service partners who build Wasabi into their solutions because their end users are asking them about carbon footprint. And they're also using the channel partners and MSPs are also using the carbon footprint calculator as a differentiator for them. When they go to their customers, they say, you should be using me and my service or purchasing from me because we have a better understanding of the impact on the environment. And we do that because we work with Wasabi. So by being able to measure with precision, that's the first bullet in this chart, measure with precision the amount of emissions that we have in a given region for the amount of storage is there and that the storage that the end user or the channel partner MSP is using. That's the first step in understanding the impact. And since we have that piece, working with Zero Circle, we can then help them report with confidence what their impact is and how they can offset it. Hemant, I'll kick it over to you to talk about the rest of it. But once you understand what your footprint is, then you can take action. Hemant, go ahead.
Yeah, no, awesome, David, and that's I'm excited to kind of announce this with you guys because what we see is there's a challenge with the quality and the veracity of this overall market, right? There's a lot of misinformation, a lot of low quality credits that's available. So what we are trying to do is elevate the quality and impact companies can take at a click of a button, right? That's the idea of what this impact circle is supposed to be, and the companies that are part of this cohort of leaders and innovators in this space that are driving real impact within their value chain for driving measurable impact within sustainability. And so what we are trying to do today is essentially use the platform, use the measurement that we built with Wasabi over the last year, 2 years, to drive this impact. And now for you as a business to take material impact for reducing your carbon footprint and using Wasabi as the leader in the space within your data storage and data center operations.
Great. I'm so stoked to have this. I think this is going to be really amazing for partners and for those providers that you said, David, to be able to take this to their own market and say, you should work with us because we have this foresight and this understanding of what actually we're doing with our own emissions, and we can showcase how we are taking it a step further than most or even able to dream of doing. So a quick example scenario here. I know we've been throwing around a lot of complex topics, and Hemant, as you had said, really trying to break that down is important. And I think, looking at just what this would be for someone who's storing some data in Wasabi, let's say they have 500 terabytes, They're using data across a few sub accounts in Wasabi. Their actual emissions, which varies, as you said, David, depending on where in the world we're operating. For sake of argument, let's say it's 20 tons of CO2 equivalent. They have a few different options for portfolio considerations across different initiatives. So whether it's direct air capture, which is the most expensive one here, or biochar, nature-based reforestation, they can really see noticeable gains in offsetting their own emissions for less than $1,000, which is considerably cheaper than what most are spending on just their storage alone in a given year. And with this, they're able to see water quality improvements, soil improvements, help their local environment with biodiversity restoration. And they all get this in an exportable, disclosed document, depending on who they're trying to report to, whether it's an annual sustainability report for customers and end users, or it's to a regulatory body like the CSRD. So, Hemant, any other things to consider here that would be important to call out? Is just a basic scenario?
Yeah, no, this is usually the use case many companies deal with. I think the complexity here, right, that we're trying to simplify is the calculation of emissions, right? That's always been the hardest part for many companies to do, and especially if you're dealing with a third party, in this case, Wasabi, who is a third party for you as a business and a your scope 3 partner. So in that sense, what Wasabi and us we are trying to do together is to simplify that process for you. So from your standpoint, you get this simple access to the data, simple access to the carbon credits, and then we help curate the right sets of projects to meet a minimum quality and threshold requirement, so that you don't have to dig around for different types of credits and different types of options, and making sure these are verified or valid projects, and then you get audited, traceable, and reportable information that you can use as part of your internal reporting. So part of the problem here is simplifying the complexity, and we're looking forward to kind of working with you to help scale these programs up with different partners working with their customers on this.
Fantastic. So now we've come to the portion of the webinar where we'll do a little bit of a demo. So Emma, if you want to take it away and show us what customers will see.
When you log in for the first time into your account, you will now see a new panel at the bottom of the page that shows you your total carbon footprint and the amount of emissions that has been created based on the locations of the storage you have put across the globe in different Wasabi data centers. In addition to that, you will also now see a new button to purchase credits to offset that emissions using the Wasabi Impact Circle platform. In addition to that, you'll also see if there were any previous transactions that you have made. You will see it in the transaction history, the most recent transaction history out here. By clicking on the purchase credits, you will now go to a new page that will show you, for all your accounts and sub-accounts, the total emissions by region and usage to be able to offset within your accounts. Now, this allows you to select which location or geography or channel you want to offset based on different criteria and different region preferences that you may have with your accounts and sub-accounts. Once you do this and identify which specific accounts you actually want to offset the emissions for, you can actually see the total emissions and the total usage right here on this table. You can switch between monthly or quarterly usage. And you can also filter it by region or by channel. I'm going to go ahead and select monthly for the month of March. When I do this, I'm going to notice that because previously I've already attempted a purchase offset, I do see there's existing transactions that have been done for the month of March, and you do not need to purchase again for new offsets for those periods. You can kind of see more details here and see previously we made specific transactions for those sub-accounts in the month of March. If I switch to April and try it again, now I see 2 accounts that offset in April, but the third one has not. So I'm just going to close out these and say this account has not been offset for April. I'm going to continue the offsets. And now you'll see that there's 4 different portfolios you can select. So we keep it simple for the users to identify what level of impact they want to create. And these are different types of projects in different parts of the world that you can use as a way to drive it. We make it seamless and simple for the user to decide. Behind the scenes, we have partnered with one of our partners to be able to provide high quality offset projects. So you can choose impact or premium portfolios. And in this case, I'm just going to select Premium Plus to meet some of the minimum pricing criteria. And this project is based in Denmark, which is a agri-green carbon project. You can see more details by clicking on the details of the project as well. So once you select the project, you go to the summary, and then you will see the total summary of which project, what the total cost was, and the total emission summary in one single page. After you complete and make the payment, you should now be able to get the retirement certificates after the payment has been done. Once the process has been complete, you'll be redirected back to the order details page that will show you the confirmation about the order that has just been placed, with all the details around which portfolio was selected, the total emissions, as well as the individual accounts and sub-accounts that were included as part of that order. From here, you can go back to the order history page and see all your previous transactions that you placed within the platform. And within the previous orders, you can also get more details about the retirement status and download any of the attestations and certifications associated with each of the accounts and sub-accounts that were included as part of that previous order. From here, you can download the attestation and then see the details of your carbon offset that you placed, including the traceability back to the original source and the retirement records for auditability and compliance requirements as required. In addition to that, this gives you the opportunity to market yourselves as a Wasabi Impact Circle partner to all your customers and partners as part of this process.
So, if it wasn't clear enough, this is really easy to get started. You can begin in 3 short steps. You log into Wasabi Account Control Manager in your Impact Circle dashboard, as Hemant showed, is already there. It's already enabled. And if you're an end user and you really want to see this project, let us know. We will help you figure out whether it's through your channel partner or someone else. It's really simple to get going, and this can be something you can enable and ask for your own MSP or reseller. Hey, this is something I want to see. I want to see this be part of your solution, and it can be as simple as 1, 2, 3. Click your options and begin purchasing a portfolio, which is instantly available. So this is something I'm really excited to put on the market, and it starts with being able to have partner-led action to create a healthier world. And we know the cloud's going to continue to grow. So join the Impact Circle today, and there's going to be a lot of great content coming around this in the future. For those who do join, there will be additional opportunities for a early release and early access schedule for new credits and new portfolios in the platform. We are also going to have conversations with people who are in this Impact Circle who want to engage with other like-minded partners and resellers of Wasabi. So if you want to engage in that as well, this would be a great place to show your face and show your organization as a leader in the IT space. So with that being said, any last thoughts or questions you guys have that you want to discuss?
I just want to thank Hemant, and the folks at Zero Circle for working with us on this. They could not be done without them. They've done a fantastic job. It is a differentiator, not just for Wasabi, but for our partners who use this. There's nothing like it in the industry, and specifically in the cloud services industry. And it's because we started working with Zero Circle early in the process years ago and architecting our system to support this kind of solution. We have to be able to, one, identify exactly what your footprint is, and then figure out the right tools and solutions in order to share that information with our customers. And Zero Circle has been critically important for that.
Yeah, same here, David. It's been amazing working with the team here. And I think we have something very unique and meaningful that we can drive some real impact, with you guys. And I think with, what Wasabi, it's just exciting to see Wasabi taking a leadership role here, because this is required in this space right now.
Great. Well, thank you all so much for joining. And if you're watching this, please see all the resources we've attached for more information on how you can get started today. And we look forward to seeing you in future conversations. Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Awesome.
Fred.